This is David Smoke's statewide Texas high school football podcast on 365 Sports and powered by Smoaky.com and sponsored by Peter Chevrolet in Longview, an innovative third-generation family dealership dedicated to ethics, integrity, and the community, while creating friendly, intelligent, and transparent environment to assist with any automotive need, large or small.
McNair in the gun with under 2 minutes left, down 44-0, trying to get a score. English right side, and he will score. Touchdown, the senior, Raul English from 2 yards out.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are an insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. We've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. Sturdy Steel. We build more than grandstands and press boxes. We build the spaces where communities come together. Based in Texas and serving communities nationwide. Batteries Plus. We have the person who can fix what you need with expert knowledge on batteries and have you on your way and good to go in no time. Batteries Plus, the experts in charge. Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue, with locations throughout the Southwest, serving up tasty food since 1989, including off I-35 in Waco. Next in line, Marco's Pizza, the fastest growing pizza brand in America. Marco's Pizza, Marcos.com. Pizza lovers get it with 5 locations in the Waco area. Bird Culchin Ford on the Loop and Highway 6 in Waco. And Waco's trusted Ford dealer since 1936. And customers know they can expect us to be fair, honest, affordable, and always committed to the tradition of quality service.
I say this every week to start off the podcast. Hey, we're about to start the season. Then we're halfway through the season. Then we have 2 weeks to go. This is the last week of the Texas high school football regular season. A lot of teams have wrapped up their playoffs and berths and even seeding, whether it's Division I or Division II. And, of course, every classification other than 6A, everybody knows when they start the year. Heck, they knew like months ago if they were going to be Class 4A Division I or Class 4A Division II or 5A down to even Class 1A, which is 6-man. This is it. This is the last week for a lot of young men, seniors, who will play their last game of high school football. I don't know about you, and if you remember your last game. And just a little bit of a reminiscing. By the way, Garrett Ross, thank you, sir. Garrett's here. Mm-hmm. Garrett loves high school football and also covers recruiting for, it's 247, right?
Yeah, 247 with Baylor, yep. And then Mike Scarborough with Tiger Bait for LSU.
There you go. And so, but my last game, I played for 3 high schools in 4 years. And if I've done this before, please just turn off the podcast. No, I'm kidding. But I played for 3 high schools in 4 years. My dad was military. He graduated from the Naval Academy, but then eventually became and ended up retired as a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. I love him. I miss him. I haven't seen him. It's been 10 years, man. 10 years since September earlier this year. It's both my parents passed away in 15. But we lived in San Antonio when I was in junior high or middle school. And then my dad was stationed, went to Vietnam. And this was in 1971 around Thanksgiving. He gets orders to go to Vietnam. We had just moved to San Antonio. My oldest brothers went to Roosevelt, the Rough Riders. So we end up being there for, I think it was a year or two. Then he goes to Vietnam. Then he gets the option of leaving Vietnam and ending that tour if he takes another 4-year tour overseas, which Vietnam, one of the closest places for him. And he'd already taken all his mandatory amount of tours, but he's a great father, family man, husband. And Vietnam was still dangerous, but it was winding down in a way. He takes a 4-year tour into Japan to help consolidate some of the Air Force and other bases there because they were starting to consolidate. And so we move. So my 8th grade year, I went to Chofu High School, the Vikings. Then I was there my freshman year. So I was 1 year at Chofu High School, and it's all in the Tokyo area. Not all the bases were naval bases, Army bases, Air Force bases. So then right before my sophomore year, we were told that Chofu High School, which was the dominant football program at the time, was going to end up consolidating with Johnson High School, and there might have been one other, and they were all going to end up, everybody, families, etc., dependents, were going to end up at Yokota Air Force Base, which is a monster Air Force base. And so my sophomore year and junior year, I was at Yokota, the Panthers. And that's where I was for 2 years. And then right before my senior year, the spring of my senior year, my dad is told that he's going back to the United States, which, most everybody was like, yes. And we're going to go back to where we were before we went to Japan, which was in San Antonio. And I ended up going to Randolph Air Force Base, the Rohawks. So I say all that because my last game, Randolph had a great tradition. They've been hit and miss the last few years. You've heard me discuss their rivalry with Fort Sam Houston and Randolph Air Force Base, Randolph High School against Cole High School, which Randolph has dominated, won again earlier this year. But my last game, back then, 2 teams made the playoffs. I believe, 2 teams. And we were in a district with Smithson Valley, I believe New Braunfels Canyon, which are both now bigger schools. Bernie, bigger school. Bernie. Hayes Consolidated, bigger school. A lot of that area that was south of Austin and around San Antonio. Our last game, and Cole was also, our rival was in the district. And we played Hayes Consolidated. They were the Rebels then. They ran the triple option. And I'm playing defensive end. I also was a guard. Yeah, believe it or not, at 170 pounds. But then it was 2A football, which now would be 3A. But they were really good. The Rebels, Hayes Consolidated. They beat the hell out of us. And all week long, we were good. We were average. We ended up 5 wins, 4 losses, and a tie. And the tie was to the hated rival, Cole. It was the first time ever between those 2 schools that Randolph did not win the game straight out. So, that wasn't good. 0-0 tie. Then we closed the year out. We're done. We're not going to make the playoff. Maybe if we would have beaten Hayes Consolidated, but what do you do when you're playing the veer, the triple option, when you're playing against the military academies? Why are they successful? One, they're really good at it, this discipline, and they're better than you think at times. But when they run that triple option, and they've changed it up a little bit where they're throwing the ball more, You can't just get ready for that, right, Garrett? You cannot get ready for the option, the veer, the wishbone. You cannot be prepared for it in a matter of just 2 practices or 3 practices the week of.
Oh, it takes time to put that in. Yeah. That's why when you see the teams at college that know they have Navy on their schedule or whatever, they have time to prepare for that in the off season because you have to.
There are teams that, for example, let's just say, remember, what was it? It might have been 2 to 4 years ago. Oklahoma hosted Army, and they had every bit of a problem with the cadets who controlled like 42 minutes of the clock, and Oklahoma survived. And we've seen what Navy's done this year. They just lost their first game against North Texas, but getting ready for those offenses. If you are pretty good, or even if you aren't very good, you can start having maybe a couple of those practices to get ready for it during the spring. I mean, literally, you take a day or an hour of a practice or 4, and you kind of go through that, and then you do it maybe for 1 day or 2 in August. But you're trying to get your team ready for the season. But you might play Army or Air Force or Navy or someone that runs the triple option. And so we played, and Hayes beat us. And I want to think. I try to forget the score, but it's like 44 or 46 to 20 something on the very first play of the game. I think I'm a pretty sharp guy. I think I have really good football IQ. Now, was I talented? I was just a guy. I was one of those guys that made like all district guard and I made all district honorable mention guard and honorable mention defensive end. And I think my head coach just liked me, so he stuck me in that list. First play of the game, there are reads that you make when you're playing the option, triple option, wishbone, whatever it was, the veer. And on the very first play, I took the wrong read. I mean, these guys were good, Hayes Consolidated, and I took the wrong one, gone. The pitch man, the fullback or the quarterback, and we were catching our tail the rest of the game. I actually ended up winning. We got beat. I actually ended up running a block punt in the end zone for a touchdown and acted like I'd never been there before because I hadn't been very often. And but we got beat. And I bring that up because all of what I've been saying, and I hope you bear with me here, is reminiscing about my last game ever and being in the locker room after being bludgeoned by Hayes Consolidated, and you're taking off your pants, your gear, your pads, your helmet, your shoulder pads. It's it. I wasn't going to play college ball. I wanted to play college baseball. Was never really good enough to do that. Tried, but not good enough. And that's what's going to happen this week. Now, some teams, like, for example, Shoemaker and Killeen in District 12 6A, they've played their 10 games. And it's an odd team district, so somebody has to have the off week. Shoemaker might get in. Their odds are like, okay. They got some things that have to happen for them to get in. But I remember that feeling. I don't know if you do or not. And it's not a fun feeling. And then next thing you know, like the next day, they're getting ready to, whoever was good enough to play basketball. And then you're basically, as a senior, and you're like, so? I mean, coaches have to move on, right? And I hate that for a lot of, but a coach that I love to death who passed away a little bit after we retired in a car wreck with his wife in Mexico. I remember he said, Smoky, any senior that plays football and they play their last game, even if they go play basketball or whatever, if you're a senior, you're like basically a dead man. And he didn't mean that, but you got to know that he was, he would just say it how it is. But that's what you are, your last game. Technically, as far as eligibility, they got to move on, get in the offseason weights, etc. Sorry about the long story. Last week, the best wins. Oh, by the way, we will hear from Matt Stepp, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. He'll join us today as our featured guest. High school from last week, the best wins. The one that kind of jumped out at me, not as a surprise, that Temple beat Copper's Cove 32-0. That surprised me. Cove will play Midway, and they're in the playoffs. No matter what happens, Midway's in, Harker Heights is in, Temple pretty much has their foot in the door, and then Shoemaker's trying to close that door. But Harker, the win by Temple, 32-0 over Cove, who moved the ball up and down the field. Rodney Southern's first year there. He's been at Belton and Huntsville. It just got away from them. I thought, by the way, Tommy Allison and Walnut Grove, how many of the close games have they won this year? And they won ever since we interviewed him. They've won their last 3 games, including a huge win against Melissa, 38-35 by 2-3 points every time. China Spring in double overtime beat Lorena 49-47. Well, great game. I'll show you in a minute. Krishan Gregory, the running back, had a huge game. I thought Fairfield 42, Westwood out of Palestine 21. I knew Fairfield. They're good with Cole Collins, their quarterback. Bechtel's the coach. But I didn't expect it to be that much, and Westwood's now lost a couple of games in a row. More on Westwood in just a moment. Let me see here. A couple of other games that I thought. Galena Park, North Shore. I don't know if North Shore and Duncanville or DeSoto are the 800-pound gorillas. They're all good. They could all win the state championship. I think that, and Matt Stepp says this a little bit later on, there's probably 15 teams in Division I and maybe 8 to 10 in Division II and 5A that can win it. Where before you would go into it, Garrett, Duncanville, North Shore, DeSoto,
yep.
Austin Westlake, you had about 8 teams. Katy, all those. And this year is not wide open, but I thought that was a huge win for North Shore. C.E. King, remember, has been really good this year, 42-27 North Shore. Waxahachie 38, Lancaster 21. Looks like they're going to play Midway for a 3rd consecutive year in the playoffs. Rockwall Heath 47, Rockwall 41. North Forney, that district with the Forney schools, man, have they been good. They beat Longview 56-55. Lobos have lost 4 games. They're going to be in the playoffs. They're dangerous, but it's been such a wild year for them and a weird and emotional year with John King and the surgery and the cancer, and he's back on the sideline. But North Forney wins that one 56-55. Longview's defense has given up a lot of points. I know a lot of teams do in this day and age, but more than you would ever expect from a team like the Lobos. Let me see here. Pleasant Grove, Pittsburgh had a pretty good year. Pittsburgh, by the way, the Pirates without the H at the end of Pittsburgh, won a state championship in 1980. They're really pretty good, but Pleasant Grove and Josh Gibson, 51-14, they beat Pittsburgh in that game. Couple of other notes from after the results from last week. Brenham has been really good in 5A. University High, the Trojans, Walter Abercrombie, LaDainian Tomlinson, Parrish Cox, all played at the next level. All of them were All-Americans at Parrish Cox went to Oklahoma, LTTCU, of course, Hall of Famer, and then Abercrombie at Baylor. All of them, but University High has been hit and miss. And they are on the verge, if they win this week, of being outright district champions for the first time since 1956. They've been to the playoffs. Very rarely. They've had long losing streaks too. But if they beat Ellison, who's a high-flying offense with Danny Cervantes' team, they would have their first outright district title. They're in, but since 1956, that's quite the accomplishment. One defensive stat. We hear about offense all the time. Canton beat Quinlan 35-10. Heath Ragel's team is good. They're 9-0. Canton had a really good run when G.J. Kenny and his dad, Gary Joe, were there. That was like, good Lord, 10, 15, 20 years ago. But they're really good. I don't know how they'll do in the playoffs when they start having to play against the other teams in East Texas. But they beat Quinlan. They had 16 big disruptive plays, 14 tackles behind the line of scrimmage, 14 times they stopped the ball behind the line of scrimmage with tackles for losses or sacks. And they had Quinlan been averaging 44 points a game, and Canton gave up just 10. They also picked off a couple of other passes. Okay, here we are. We've talked about and discussed in this historic run of Kagan Ash at Mount Enterprise, but we're going to bring some other guys into the picture when it comes to rushing yards, et cetera, here in just a second. But let's do this. Last week, Kagan Ash, 599 yards rushing. You heard me say that right. 599 yards rushing. I got a text the night that they played. It was a Thursday night. They beat Overton 60-42 from the head coach, Scott Ponder. He goes, I think he had 585 or 590. Then the next morning, they send me the official stats, 599 yards. Here are the most rushing yards in a single game in the history of this amazing state of high school football. Tied the record. You're like, man, he could have gotten 599 against Overton, and it was a very competitive game. Matt Stepp of McKinney, I'll never forget, I actually listened to part of this on the radio at 599 8 years ago against Plano East. Darrell Ellis held the record forever since 98 against Thrall from Somerville. DeMarque Foster from Hershey against Decatur in 17, the same year that Gadet had his big game. And then Tyrone Swoops, remember him, played quarterback at Texas. He's a big dude at Whitewright, 560 in 2011 against Tom Bean in the most rushing yards in a single game in Texas high school football history. Speaking of which, there's a young man named Christian Villarreal at Ozona. His head coach, he was at New Diana last year, and he's now at Ozona. And Jason Pitts, Christian Villarreal had 411 yards, 5 touchdowns against Forsan to win 46-40. So they were pushed. Villarreal, as they head into the last week of the regular season, has 3,269 yards. He is 776 yards away from what was always thought of as the unbreakable record of Kenneth Hall in 1 year. When Kenneth Hall did that in 12 games, of course, a lot more games. So look for that as a possibility that Christian Villarreal is going to set that record and might do it in the next couple of weeks. Of course, competition playoff games coming up, but one more game left in the regular season this week. Now, I started thinking about this, and I don't know. I think it's because of you hear about the spread offense. It's all about spacing. You hear about throwing the ball, the fades, passing everywhere, throwing the ball every down, but it's all about spacing. And rushing yards, even though the last 20 years or so, when they opened up, when people started throwing the ball around crazy and 7-on-7, probably 20, 25 years ago, you saw a lot of the passing yards. It's air raid, all of that, right? The spread. Last week alone, I've been saying this now for a long time. Even though it's the air raid or the spread or whatever you call it, and passing yards are higher than most and ever before, there's more rushing yards each week than ever before. This is just in the area that my website, Smoaky.com, covers. And I try to cover on this podcast throughout the entire state of Texas. These are the rushing yards in just 1 week. Last week in East or Central Texas, Kagan Ash, 599. Kenneth Waters of Lufkin was 20 yards away from their single-season school record, 295 yards in a win against United out of Beaumont. Krishan Gregory in a win against Lorena, 320 yards. Brian Grissom, are you kidding me? So Ty Kuhn, the head coach, he sends me a note, and I'm like, okay, what? 29 carries for 480 yards. Now, I didn't put any of the touchdowns on this list for the graphic. 480, shattered his own school record, the school record, but he's it out. Look, I mean, it's not. And then Jaden Lucky of Troy has been putting up big numbers, 319 yards in a win against Rockdale. It is amazing the kind of yardage we're seeing. So now what does all that mean? I mentioned Christian Villarreal hunting down Kenneth Hall for most rushing yards in a single season. Here are, right now, as of today, here are the top, 10 single game rushing yards, even all the ones I mentioned with Kagan Ash, et cetera. This is for the year. You have Kenneth Hall in 12 games, 4,045. That's been there, since 1953. If you ever covered high school football and you looked at, like, the rushing yards is such a major, it's like home run record when it comes to football. Then Trey Williams of Decaney, who was spectacular. He did that in 16 games. Kenneth Hall did his in 12. Then you have Jonathan Gray, went to Texas, Alito High School, Sadler from Devine, Rodney Thomas Groveton, lost him at too much of an early age, went to play for A&M and played in the NFL with the Oilers. Then you have Mora from Mason, the Punchers. Wes Danaher, we've brought him up a few times before, from Cal Allen. Then you have Cedric Benson, another one that we lost too early, Midland Lee. I did a high school game against Duncanville at Texas Stadium when Benson was at Midland Lee. They won those state championships. Kennedy Brooks, Mansfield. I did Kennedy Brooks games for a couple of years, not for Mansfield, but they played against Midway. And I remember when they played at home, Midway, and Brooks ran off for a bunch of yards. It was a sophomore, and I'm like, this guy, balance and speed and strength. Just hate that he never ended up being healthy enough once he got out of Oklahoma to do even more. He had huge games, 35-22. And then Robert Strait, I saw him in 1985 as I think a freshman. Yeah, a freshman. No, sophomore. He had 35-15. They played against those great Dangerfield teams in the mid-'80s, and he, of course, had a bunch of yards. So what does that mean? Now, that's 1 through 10. Where are the current the current running backs compared to this? Christian Villarreal, 3269. Ernie Powers at Franklin High School in El Paso, 3,063, and Kagan Ash, 2,784. That's through last week. They have a week left. They're going to add to that. Let's just say each one of them was to get, let's say that Christian Villarreal has 300 yards. He would jump all the way into like number 7 or 8 all time in a single season. Ash, Powers, and Villarreal. And here's the upcoming games. Ozona against Cristobal. That's where Jack Pardee, old school, played at Cristobal. Then he went and played at A&M, and he was an NFL linebacker with the Rams and the Redskins, and then became a head coach for a long time. And then Franklin against Pebble Hills and Mount Enterprise against the Yellow Jackets at Alto. So, okay, now what does all that mean on the Kagan Ash run to history? Kenneth Hall, there he is at the top. This is going to be tough to reach, but Kagan Ash is at number 5 with 9,604 yards after the nearly 600 last week. He is 1,600 yards away, just over 1,600 yards away. I don't know how many games Mount Enterprise will win. They have one more this week. I don't know how deep they'll go because Division II and Class 2A is very competitive, but he's going to need to have huge games and at least probably 4 games, but he is climbing up the charts, no question about it. With the 599, it says through 8 games. That's my fault. It's through 9. Now, career points scored. Kagan Ash. Remember, we've been keeping track of this. Jonathan Gray, that's going to be hard to get to. But Kagan is averaging right now like 50 points a game, 6, 7, 8 touchdowns, 3, 4, 5 conversions, caught a touchdown pass, 2-point conversion, touchdown pass, kick return. So that's going to be interesting. That's a long way to go, 202. But he, again, this looked like it was unreachable. But he's at number 2 all time after what he's done through, now, again, not 8 games. I need to update that. That's on me, 9 games. One final note. Kavion Bryant, I mentioned that Fairfield beat Westwood out of Palestine 42-21 last week, the number 1 rated quarterback. I think dual threat in 2027. He is a junior this year at Westwood. He's spectacular, also an incredible basketball player and more. He committed to Texas Tech last week, the number 1 quarterback in the class of 2027 at Westwood High School. But they've lost a couple of games in a row, so they need to get themselves back on track. One final note, just a note, and then we come back with Matt Stepp. The snapshot day, I mentioned it just quickly last week when last Friday, I think it began, and also through parts of this week, schools will enter what is their average enrollment on a specific day. For example, let's say it's 445 students, and they turn that into the University Interscholastic League. They will have this massive database spreadsheet, and then you start, okay, 6A, what's the cutoff? What's the minimum enrollment that puts you in 6A? Right now, this was as of maybe a couple of days ago, and it might have gone up a little bit, 2,250 means that anything at 2,250 or above, you would be in 6A. Now, that number can change. That can change, but these Matt Stepp, Matt Diggs, and some others, Carl Padilla, they really do a good job with kind of knowing how this works out. And then you see 5A would be the lower level at 1,250, then 4A and on down. That might shift a little bit. They will come out with those numbers sometime by the end of this year, and then we'll have realignment when all the districts are put together, and that's released the first Monday or Wednesday in February. All right, so there we are with that. When we come back, Matt Stepp, we'll talk a little bit about that with him. Also, the rushing records that are under assault and much more. Matt Stepp, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. Thanks to Batteries Plus, Peters Chevrolet, Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine, Bubba's 33, Sturdy Steel, and Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. Peters, the logo, they have been with me for years, sponsoring the high school coverage from back when I first started until where we are today. We appreciate Randy Peters. Back with more, Matt Stepp, and then the best games of the week around the corner.
My go-to guy. Can you fix my smartphone?
Yes.
Do you have car batteries?
Yeah.
What about golf cart batteries?
Of course.
Battery from a G-Fob?
Absolutely.
My boat?
Huge variety.
Toy boat?
Sure.
Motorcycles?
You bet.
My apartment building?
Whole building.
Do you have batteries for my party lights?
Yeah.
Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Peters Ram in Longview is gearing up for this football season during the Make This the Summer event going on now. Make all the right moves by getting 25% off MSRP on new select Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cabs. The season is looking good with the largest selection of new Ram trucks at Peters Ram during the Make This the Summer event. Online at peterscars.com.
At Sturdy Steel, we build more than grandstands and press boxes. We build the spaces where communities come together. Based in Texas and serving communities nationwide, we're proud of our reputation for dependable, high-quality work and strong client relationships that stand the test of time. From concept to installation, our team of skilled drafters, welders, and installers takes pride in delivering seating solutions designed to last. With a focus on dependability, transparency, and service, we are here to make the unique needs of architects, contractors, schools, and venues across the country. We ensure every project is seamless, sturdy, and ready for generations of fans to enjoy. That's Sturdy Steel. This is David Smoke's statewide Texas high school football podcast on 365 Sports and powered by Smoaky.com and sponsored by Peter Chevrolet in Longview, an innovative third-generation family dealership dedicated to ethics, integrity, and the community, while creating friendly, intelligent, and transparent environment to assist with any automotive need, large or small.
McNair in the gun with under 2 minutes left, down 44-0, trying to get a score. English right side, and he will score. Touchdown, the senior, Raul English from 2 yards out.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are an insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. We've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. Sturdy Steel. We build more than grandstands and press boxes. We build the spaces where communities come together. Based in Texas and serving communities nationwide. Batteries Plus. We have the person who can fix what you need with expert knowledge on batteries and have you on your way and good to go in no time. Batteries Plus, the experts in charge. Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue, with locations throughout the Southwest, serving up tasty food since 1989, including off I-35 in Waco. Next in line, Marco's Pizza, the fastest growing pizza brand in America. Marco's Pizza, Marcos.com. Pizza lovers get it with 5 locations in the Waco area. Bird Culchin Ford on the Loop and Highway 6 in Waco. And Waco's trusted Ford dealer since 1936. And customers know they can expect us to be fair, honest, affordable, and always committed to the tradition of quality service.
Matt Stepp has done an incredible job of covering high school football for quite some time. Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine and all of the stuff they do on TexasFootball.com. Matt, thank you very much, buddy. Great to have you on this week. The last week of the regular season, there is an assault, as you know, on the rushing records with what Villarreal is doing at Ozona, Kagan Ash at Mount Enterprise, and others. You think about the open, air raid, whatever, and it's about passing, but it's about spacing. And it's incredible to me that Kenneth Hall's record could be in jeopardy at some point in the next month or so.
Yeah, I think he put it, football is turning into a math problem in a lot of ways where offensive coordinators are spreading the field. And if there's, 6 guys in the box or less, they're running the ball. And if there's, 7 or more, they're throwing the ball. And you've got athletes like Ash and Villarreal at the small school level who are just putting up just staggering numbers week in and week out. And it's shocking because you're right. Both of these guys, they don't play in slot T offenses or anything like that. They are in spread offenses, yet they are just putting up incredible rushing numbers. It's really interesting and intriguing how the game continues to evolve and to try. The offensive guys are trying to stay one step ahead of the defensive guys constantly. With Ozona out in West Texas and Mount Enterprise in East Texas, where they have these elite running backs who are supreme athletes, and to be quite honest, they play on teams where the defense isn't really that good, and so they have to stay in the game for 4 quarters in a lot of these games and put up these eye-popping numbers because they just have to in order to win. Ozona and Mount Enterprise are playing fairly competitive, high-scoring football games, so they're getting the touches that you would need to put up the yardage to really have a legitimate shot at that record.
What would you say, in your opinion, has been one of the biggest 1 or 2 or 3 stories in high school football this year?
Well, definitely Kenneth Hall's record. That's probably we talked about that yesterday in the office, for maybe the number one story just from a record standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me the biggest thing is parity. When I look especially at 6A Division I, this is not a year where there is a real just bona fide contender that's like that guy that we don't have Duncanville North Shore this year. We have Duncanville North Shore, but they're not head and shoulders above the field like they've been in the past. I think in the state's largest classification, you have 15 teams that could maybe make a legitimate case to win the state championship this year, which makes the playoff brackets a whole lot of fun. I think that's one thing. I think also just looking at the Gunner and Carthage, can they continue their runs of dominance, especially Gunner with a new head coach this year and kind of what's going on there with the coaching change this offseason, but their winning streak is intact. They're going to be a contender. So those are the three kind of biggest, things that I've kind of had my eye on. But there's, this covering Texas high school football, covering the entire state. I mean, there's a story every week in some corner of the state that's just intriguing.
I don't know if this has been discussed or not. So when they went to, like, 6A is always going to split after the year's over, like whoever ends up 1, 2, whatever. But when they went to the split of the divisions prior to the year, so everybody knew they were Division 1 and 4A or 2A or whatever, does it seem like we're seeing more of the mini or long-term dynasties that way than we had it before?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you split it, I think the really good teams, especially a team like Carthage, who maybe isn't the largest school in 4A, but they, when you split it, now they're on the larger end of 4A Division II, and so they're already equipped for dominance. And now you've exacerbated that, I think, with the split division. I think if 4A was not split, I think Carthage would obviously still be a contender year in and year out. But maybe they don't win, 10 state championships? They're going for number 11 this year. Maybe they don't win as many state titles because of you're having to go through a lot bigger schools. I mean, right now, Salina, which obviously off the field stuff aside, right, on the field, they're still the number one team in the state of Texas. Well, Salina turned in a snapshot number this week of over 1,500 kids. And so that's tough for when Anna won the state championship in 2023, they had 5A numbers in the building with that football team, and they had 1,400 kids in the school, and they went to 5A the next year, but they were playing that last year in 4A as a pseudo 5A program. That's what you see, especially in 4A Division I, those emerging schools with the fast growth. That last year they're in 4A, they really have 5A numbers. And I think that would make it a lot tougher for a team like Coach to compete in Division I year. They would still compete and win a lot, but maybe they don't win as many state champions.
But now that we're about to close this out, is there a story or two that is like one of your favorite surprises this year at this point?
Oh, that's a great question. No, excuse me. We were talking about it. Obviously, one team. This team's not going to win a state championship, but Houston Wisdom, down there in Houston ISD, if they win this week against Houston Chavez, they will make the playoffs for the first time since 1979. And that'll be a huge achievement for those kids. That's the we're going to talk about the teams who are going to win state championships and those kind of things. But a story like that is really special because those kids, that program has struggled for so long. For those kids to have a little bit of success is really what it's all about. Remember a few years ago in Amarillo Boys Ranch, such a unique place up there at Amarillo. They broke their long losing streak, and that was such a cool story. I'll tell you one that a couple out of East Texas that have really intrigued me. Tucker was talking about was Frankston, who I think is a bona fide threat to win 2A Region 2 Division I, going for their first undefeated season in forever. Maybe it might be close to 100 years since they've been playing football. They would have an undefeated season. So they're going for a 10-0 record. And then how about, no one's talking about East Texas, but how about Heath Regal and the undefeated Canton Eagles, 9-0 on the year. They are having a huge year out there. So, and there's 30 or 40 stories that I could, probably go through if we had an hour to talk about it. Those are a couple that I recently have looked at and wrote about that jumped off the page to me.
Who among those who have just been really good for a long, long time or have been dominant of late are kind of like, oh my God, what's happened to them in your opinion?
Katie, I think, especially early in the year, really went through some struggles, losing a couple of games. They just didn't look very good. They really struggled on the defensive side of the ball, which is not what you're used to seeing from a Katy Tiger football team. They've gotten their wheels back on in district play. But I think, they play in a 9-team district. So they've been playing district play since September against other Katy ISD opponents. So I think there are still some questions. Is Katy back, or is this more a product of maybe a weaker district this year? And I think we're going to find out come playoff time. But, yeah, Katy's struggles, especially early in the year, really, really popped off the page at me. And then I think again, going back to your old stomping ground, I think Gilmer's struggles this year have been real. I mean, obviously a brutal schedule in non-district, especially playing, Kilgore and Tyler Chapel Hill and punching up to Brenham. But their struggles have really been noticeable. They've gotten blown out in a few games, and they really haven't gotten it together all that much in district play. I mean, they barely beat Pittsburgh. They got blown out by Pleasant Grove, and they got beat by Van. So I think Gilmer's struggles have really, this is a team that may not get out of the first round of the playoff.
I'm looking back. It was prior to when Jeff Traylor. No, they had a 6-7 team in 18 with Matt Turner, but they made a run, and got 3 rounds deep. But prior to that, when Jeff Traylor arrived, they were always underachieving, 4-5-1 back when they were ties 5-5. They just didn't. Yeah, they haven't had that. And I know that town, that's one of those. They are not happy. I know Alan Witzel, we like him a lot, but they gotta try to make a run somehow. Matt, the snapshot week, day, whatever days going on, so we figure out later on about how everybody is split up. How complicated is that system to try to figure out the where you start and then from 6A and on down?
Yeah, I mean, for us trying to guess what the UIL is going to do is always probably an exercise in futility, to be honest with you. I mean, but we have guys like me and Carl Padilla have a fun time trying to get at least putting our hats on and trying to play UIL in our own little world for a minute. And I don't envy the job that the UIL has, because you've got Texas is a huge state geography wise, and it's not exactly a square. And then you've got, especially in the outlying, you get along I-35 and east, you could, the travel distances aren't too bad. You can make some things work. You might make a couple of people mad, but when you get out to South Texas and far West Texas, you've really got some challenges when you're putting districts together, because the distances are so far, and you have to take into account what's fair. And the thing I tell coaches all the time is, when you're doing realignment, you can't make everyone happy. There's too many schools, too many different areas of the state of Texas. Somebody's ox is always going to get gored. You just hope that your ox doesn't get gored 2 realignments in a row. That's when you can really have some complaints. So it's not I think the biggest thing that I'm noticing, and I'm doing some snapshot numbers that I've gotten in now, and I've got about 725 or so in so far. The biggest trend I'm noticing is there is definitely a decline in public school enrollment across the state. I think that's an effect, probably more. There's more charter schools that are popping up here and there where they may not necessarily play sports, but they're charter schools and kids are going there. And I think we're going to see some interesting cutoff numbers when the UIL releases that in December. I do believe the cutoff numbers, at least in 6A, 5A, and 4A, are going to drop, which in my research has only happened a couple of times since 1980.
A couple of questions, Matt. Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, TexasFootball.com, and all the shows and podcasts. So college football is becoming the NFL in basically almost every way possible, whether they end up with a Super League or what, and the NIL and all that. And players are getting money, and after so long with a NCAA ruled with an iron fist. Well, the UIL has been known to rule with an iron fist, and they do an incredible job, believe me. So do you think high school football will ever be like college football with the way they have NIL and more?
Well, right now the UIL has an out because the state law doesn't allow it. So the UIL can just point back to the state legislature and say, well, the state doesn't allow it. So they really don't even address NIL. Do I think eventually at some point there will be NIL in Texas high school sports? Yes. However, I think people on the whole greatly overestimate the dollars that are available at the high school level. People think high school football is just this gigantic moneymaker and there's just thousands of dollars just floating around for kids. And it's really not the case on the whole. Are there exceptions? Yes. And could there be a Kyler Murray, Cedric Benson type emerge that is marketable, maybe does make some money in the NIL space when it's available? Yes. But I think for the most part, 99% of the Texas high school football players, 99% of them don't go on to play college football as it is. Mm-hmm. So I think for the most part, you're not going to see it a huge deal. Do I think it will happen? And you may see, and I'm just going to throw out of town, near there in Central Texas. Let's say there's a kid that plays running back at Troy. Remember Zach Grabowczyk? And maybe, the local donut shop in Troy gives him like $100 to do a radio commercial for the Troy radio. Maybe something like that happens. Yeah, but I think for the most part, you're not going to see a bunch of kids getting trans A&Ms like Eric Dickerson did at Sealy back in the day, or $100 handshakes. I don't see it on the whole. I do think there'll be exceptions to the rule, and I think it'll be a challenge for the UIL to manage because there are people out there with bad intentions who maybe have a little bit of money who want to try to influence kids and that kind of thing. And you have to watch out for that as well. There's always unfortunately, there are people who don't have kids' best intentions out there and maybe looking to make a buck off a kid. And so you have to keep an eye on that, especially because you're dealing with minors and not adults.
Tell everybody how you got into this, because there's that Texas high school football, the media mafia. And I've been in it a long, long time and love what a lot of you do. But you obviously have been somebody that I've watched and followed and listened to and enjoy. And you sent me a text, in fact, last year when the ballot came out for the Hall of Fame, an incredible note from you that I'll always remember, too, and you'll be there one day. But so how did you get into this? Tell everybody your love story for high school football.
Well, I didn't take the traditional journalist route. I was a guy who, I grew up, in South Fort Worth, and we didn't have a whole lot of money, and so we couldn't go to Cowboys games or TCU games. But what my dad could afford was to take me to an Everman Bulldogs game on Friday night, and that was kind of where I first fell in love with high school football, because I just thought it was amazing. And after I got in college and thought I wanted to get into coaching, and just didn't realize that teaching wasn't for me. Then being in a classroom just wasn't up my alley. I started just kind of posting on, this was, 2005, 2006, just kind of posting on the internet message boards, and a couple of guys thought I knew what the hell I was talking about and gave, couldn't pay me. They just said, hey, you can come work for us and we'll give you a media credential. Maybe you'll get a free press box meal out of it a time or two. And that's what I did for a couple of years. And then, started, making a little bit of money, maybe enough money to cover my gas. And it just kind of grew from there. And I think my story is probably unique because, I didn't go to school to be a journalist. I think now there's everybody's trying to get into media and doing different things. And I think I was a product of probably a little bit of fortunate timing and being a little OCD and loving high school football maybe a little bit too much, according to my wife. So it's probably just a combination of factors. But I've been really fortunate and blessed to be able to do this for as long as I have, and to build relationships with other media members like yourself and coaches across the state of Texas, and even the fans. With social media now, you can interact directly. It's a lot easier to interact with fans, and so I just try to be a genuine, honest person, and try to just a guy who really loves high school football. At my core, I'm just a guy who loves to go watch high school football on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
And you do, and multiple games, sometimes like more than just one a day. It's just amazing. Matt Stepp, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. Thank you very much for your time, my friend, and keep doing what you do.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
Matt Stepp, 365 Sports, and the High School Football Statewide Podcast.
go-to guy. Can you fix my smartphone?
Yes.
You have car batteries?
Yeah.
What about golf cart batteries?
Of course.
Battery from a T-fob?
Absolutely.
My boat?
Huge variety.
Toy boat?
Sure.
Motorcycles?
You bet.
My apartment building?
Whole building.
Do you have batteries for my party lights?
Yeah.
Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Peters Ram in Longview is gearing up for this football season during the Make This the Summer event going on now. Make all the right moves by getting 25% off MSRP on new select Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cabs. The season is looking good with the largest selection of new Ram trucks at Peters Ram during the Make This the Summer event. Online at peterscars.com.
At Sturdy Steel, we build more than grandstands and press boxes. We build the spaces where communities come together. Based in Texas and serving communities nationwide, we're proud of our reputation for dependable, high-quality work and strong client relationships that stand the test of time. From concept to installation, our team of skilled drafters, welders, and installers takes pride in delivering seating solutions designed to last. With a focus on dependability, transparency, and service, we are here to make the unique needs of architects, contractors, schools, and venues across the country. We ensure every project is seamless, sturdy, and ready for generations of fans to enjoy. That's Sturdy Steel. This is David Smoke's statewide Texas high school football podcast on 365 Sports and powered by Smoaky.com and sponsored by Peter Chevrolet in Longview, an innovative third-generation family dealership dedicated to ethics, integrity, and the community, while creating friendly, intelligent, and transparent environment to assist with any automotive need, large or small.
McNair in the gun with under 2 minutes left, down 44-0, trying to get a score. English right side, and he will score. Touchdown, the senior, Raul English from 2 yards out.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are an insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. We've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. Sturdy Steel. We build more than grandstands and press boxes. We build the spaces where communities come together. Based in Texas and serving communities nationwide. Batteries Plus. We have the person who can fix what you need with expert knowledge on batteries and have you on your way and good to go in no time. Batteries Plus, the experts in charge. Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue, with locations throughout the Southwest, serving up tasty food since 1989, including off I-35 in Waco. Next in line, Marco's Pizza, the fastest growing pizza brand in America. Marco's Pizza, Marcos.com. Pizza lovers get it with 5 locations in the Waco area. Bird Culchin Ford on the Loop and Highway 6 in Waco. And Waco's trusted Ford dealer since 1936. And customers know they can expect us to be fair, honest, affordable, and always committed to the tradition of quality service.
Here are the best games thanks to Jerry Forrest and pigskinprep.com. We do this every week to close out the show. The black numbers, all of them this week are on the left. What does that mean? Those are the teams favored to win, or there's a couple of pick'em games too. So when you see 14, based on Jerry's index, he rates every single high school football team, 6-man, all the way to 6A to Allen, and their huge enrollment. Everything else in between based on the classifications, the index, the wins and losses and scores and others, and who else has won or who they beat and what have they done. And then even the smallest of private schools and also public schools too. Tidehaven, 9-0 against East Bernard. Now this, Tidehaven's a favorite. They're really good. But East Bernard, they've got a great history. That could be a tough game. That should be a really good game. The number in blue on the right is the index numbers, for example. It's easy. Math. Tidehaven 2, East Bernard is 6, and so the index number is 8. The lower the number, the better the game. And I don't do, like, Jerry will send me 40, 45 games. I pick and choose some of the ones that to me have just pretty interesting. All right, Plano Prestonwood, they're 4-4. Houston St. Thomas is 8-1. Prestonwood has played a tremendous schedule, and they're favored to win that game by a touchdown. De Leon, good for them, and Hamilton. These two teams are not far apart from each other in Class 2A. Remember, Hamilton made that great run last year. De Leon favored by 3. Houston Legacy with Keshawn Henderson, the University of Houston quarterback commit. They're playing against Cornerstone. That's a team that's come on. Really good game. Forget about 6-3 with Cornerstone because they have played a fantastic schedule. Shallow Water and Dalhart, a pick'em game. Bastrop, 9-0, and Liberty Hill. Heck of a game there. Liberty Hill with that running attack that can, if you get sideways with them, they will make you look foolish. Liberty Hill 7-2, Bastrop at 9-0. Canadian, always good. Childress, old school history. Canadian favored by 6. Peaster and Vernon, the Lions, are 6-point underdogs against Peaster. Stanford, another one of those great schools out in the West with a great history. What was it? James Washington played at Oklahoma State. Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, with the Cowboys for a little bit. Dynamic, maybe one of the best small school players ever in that same conversation with, I think, Quan Cosby and a few others in Texas history when you're talking about the smaller classifications. Joaquin, the Rams, and Garrison, the Bulldogs, 6-3, 6-3. First year I ever did television started back in 1981. Garrison went on to play for a state championship, and Domingo Bryant was the quarterback who ended up playing at A&M. They did not win, but that was a fun trip for me. My first year in TV, I'm like, my God, this is kind of fun. Eventually the Grovetons and others became and Alto too. Then you have Grapeland, the Sandys, and Lovelady. Lovelady's loss was the one to Mount Enterprise and Kagan Ash. They're 8-1, slight favorite against Grapeland. Corpus Christi battle between 8-1 and 7-2, Flower Bluff and Memorial. Palo Duro, touchdown favorite against Cooper. Georgetown and Cedar Park. Georgetown's really good. 8-1. Cedar Park 6-3. Goldthwaite, or as my late friend and the great Butch Henry used to say, Goldthwaite. Just like there's certain schools that they just say it, that's how they say it in their city. Goldthwaite, pick'em game against Mart, 5-4. They've had a year or two now where things haven't been quite right. Chris Lancaster trying to get that thing turned around at Mart. And Westlake and Dripping Springs. You've had that triumvirate, right, in that district. Lake Travis, Westlake, Dripping Springs. Lake Travis beat both of them. Now these two teams will be fighting for a seed. Westlake at 7-2, Dripping Springs at 8-1. So there we are with week number 11, the last week of the regular season, district games. We'll have playoff discussion next week. It's here. It's like next thing you know, we'll be carving turkeys. Then we'll be opening up presents under the tree. It's here. The playoffs start next week. We hope you've enjoyed the first 11 weeks of what we've done as we close out the regular season. And Garrett Ross in our great studios at 365 Sports on MLK and Elm Avenue, just away from McLean Stadium, a mile west of McLean Stadium on I-35. Thanks for your time. We appreciate our great sponsors and you. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. This is the Texas Statewide High School Football Podcast and 365 Sports. Have a great week.